What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Rewind. Nick Farabaugh here. Austin Hertzog here, our sports editor. He's in town, so you get 2 for 1 today. Austin, welcome to the party, man.
Love it, man. What a day to be here, Nick. We had the Steelers go to 3-0.
Yeah.
Great defensive battle, and the Steelers really showed up in a big way, I thought. Justin Fields, I think, arrived here in Pittsburgh. What were some of your big takeaways?
Yeah, 20-10. Justin Fields did arrive. This was the training wheels came off a little bit.
Yeah.
We had talked about the first 2 weeks. Felt like they were kind of just getting through it, right? They felt they were better than Atlanta. They felt they were better than Denver. They didn't need Justin Fields to step up. Today, Justin Herbig had a really good first half. He gets hurt, of course, in the second half, which changes the trajectory of the game completely. But they needed something to crack through in the fourth quarter. Justin Fields, that throw to Calvin Austin for the 55-yard touchdown threw him wide open. There were a few anticipatory throws today where I thought, oh my Lord, that is what you need out of Justin Fields. The seam shot before the half to Pat Fryman, didn't catch it.
I was going to say,
yeah.
we both talked about that. It was like, that was the best throw of the day.
Right.
It didn't actually come off, but he executed just needle eye on that. So yeah, I mean, he impressed me. Like you said, where it was a little bit of the training wheels on before, and then I felt like even throughout the game, you felt him open up a little bit more too. I think that was also an encouraging sign from how I saw it.
I agree, and then you look at what happened in Chicago to now. He's just calmer in the pocket. He's making his reads better. He had one errant throw. You know, you can argue if that was on him or Patterson or whatever. Patterson was basically a running back playing wide receiver today because they only had 3 healthy guys after Van Jefferson went down. Roman Wilson was inactive. And so there's just a lot to kind of go through there. I think there are still issues with this team, but I think there's a lot of positives. That fourth quarter, I think, overall, for the entire offense was really, really encouraging. Not just for Fields, but they started to run the football at will. You saw the O-line really start to open up seams. Cordero Patterson looked really good. Najee Harris started to get a few really nice runs going. I thought in the second half, the first half, I thought there were struggles from the offensive line. I thought Spencer Anderson struggled. I thought Dan Moore struggled. I thought Broderick Jones struggled. And then I thought in the second half, as things got going, Zach Frazier looked like how Zach Frazier looked. Broderick Jones really, I think, had a good second half. That's where I thought was big. Mason McCormick coming in. They had a rotation at left guard today. I'm not too keen on rotations on the offensive line, but McCormick cleared some holes for them. It felt like everything started to get together. That needs to be a launching pad for this offense. 2 touchdowns today, 20 points. Again, it's still not like elite. It's still not going to hang with the top offenses. But if they play like this today, if they can get things going, this offense has a chance to have a lot more upside than what we saw in Atlanta and Denver. And I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, and I think the other part that the way that the offensive line was able to execute there down the stretch was that it wasn't just against any other team. It was the Chargers team that entered as the top scoring defense in the league. So it's not just anybody that they were able to execute that on. I mean, granted, Chargers were without Joey Bosa, who injured himself early on in the game on QB pressure. But actually, why don't we touch on injuries?
Yeah, there were a few injuries.
Yeah, there were a few injuries.
And I think the injuries, not just for the Steelers, but this tells the story for the Chargers a little bit. Rashawn Slater, Justin Herbig, Joey Bosa. We're talking about 4 premier players getting hurt in this game for them. It became a little easier for the Steelers defense, but I think, for the Steelers defense too, some injury concerns. Highsmith goes down with the groin. Trice goes down with the hammy. Those are significant. Van Jefferson did return with the eye injury, so we think he's okay. But Jaylen Warren, the hamstring has just been an issue, I think, over these first 2 weeks. We've been talking about this a little bit on Steelers Breakdown, guys. It just doesn't look like he has the same burst that he does. He was one of the best tackle breakers in the NFL last year, and he just doesn't have the same burst. You saw Patterson come in and just start ripping off runs. Najee Harris started getting going, and Jaylen Warren it never really came together there. So I think that's something to worry about. So injuries, definitely something to be concerned about. Isaac Seumalo's still out. Troy Fautano, I did see him in the locker room after the game. Didn't have a brace on, wasn't on crutches. Again, the reporting is that he's going to miss most, if not all, of the regular season. But I guess if you want maybe a silver lining, maybe there's a chance that, early in the week they get some news back that he can maybe only miss a few weeks and be back. So that could be something. But lots of injuries for the Steelers. They're really banged up team. I think of showing through the injuries, they're a pretty deep team. This is where we get to the defense, Austin.
I was just going to say, I was going to tee you up for, outside Smith goes out, but then Nick Herbig comes in and has just a monster day. Really, no drop off. What did you see? Well, you talked to him after the game.
Yeah.
What were some of your takeaways from Nick?
I love seeing Nick Herbig come in because this was a guy that has been so productive in limited snaps. Even last year, he was like a turnover machine when he came in, and then he gets significant snaps. He only had 8 pass rushing snaps. He had 3 pressures and 2 sacks. One of them was strip sack in this game. That's productivity. You want to talk about making the most of your opportunities. He's a smaller dude, but it doesn't look like he's like overmatched in run defense. The run defense did not drop off at all with Nick Herbig in there. That was a big thing, right? They keyed in on this run defense. This run offense for the Chargers is averaging 198 yards per game. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards didn't really do anything. They were mostly, their struggles were being diced up by Justin Herbert in that first half. And then I think they started to kind of figure things out. They started sending blitzes. The front started winning up front. I will say this, I asked Patrick Queen if he said the best defensive line in the NFL resides in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think it's hard to deny it. Especially he's fully healthy. You talk about Highsmith, he's such a versatile good player. Watt having that big play, of course, on the sack. Then you just look at Cam Hayward. He is 35 years old, folks, and this man is still an elite player in this league. For all the doubters that he had before the season, wow, he's been good. Keanu Benton's taking a second year. Larry Ogunjobi's playing the best we've seen him in a Steelers uniform. Ian Montrevious Adams is the 4th guy here. He's taking a step up from an interior portion. So the defensive front is just so loaded. Patrick Queen, I think, had his best game in a Steelers uniform. Landon Roberts did well. Peyton Wilson looked solid. Where I think people are going to overlook this, though, I know that the secondary had some first half struggles. I think this is the best secondary they've had since 2020. I do. I think Dante Jackson's come in and played well. Deshaun Elliott's played well. Joey Minka. I still want to see a little more from Beanie Bishop in the slot. I thought Ladd McConkey had some nice productivity from the slot today, but secondary looks good too. This defense has a chance to be really special. I truly believe it.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was in for TJ Watt's presser, and all the other journalists were pretty interested in hearing about Nick Herbig too. He's like, after a second straight question, he's like, I don't want to talk about Herb anymore, which cracked me up a little bit. But I actually asked TJ about the fact that they were against a Chargers unit that was also really highly touted, and he wasn't really, that wasn't a big motivating force. That it wasn't all about just, we need to prove that we're the #1 defense here today. Like it's all just part of the larger plan. Was I think what my takeaway from TJ's work were.
Yeah, and I think that's just about right. This team has flaws. I still have questions about some of the personnel usage they have on offense. I don't love rotating guys. I think they're figuring out what their wide receiver 2 situation is right now. Right? I mean, listen, Jefferson left the game, and I think you saw more spark from Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller than we have from Jefferson in the first 2. And I think that is significant. Roman Wilson hasn't played a game yet. I think going forward, you probably have to play Miller and Austin more than Jefferson. Muth started to get going there a little bit. But they're like figuring out the pieces here. Jalen Warren's not fully healthy. The offensive line is still in flux. I think, this is just from what I saw on the south side this week, I think they might get Isaac Seumalo back next week, which would be a huge boost to their offensive line. We'll see. Broderick Jones can continue to play. Justin Fields. I think Arthur Smith still needs to kind of figure out his personnel and kind of where things go. So I think there's a lot of growth here. There's still a lot of meat left on this bone.
Yeah.
Specifically on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense is humming and it's going at a high level right now. But the offense, I think, still has a lot of things to work through. But I think that fourth quarter, you want to talk about the dam breaking, which is what they've talked about all week. That can be the start of the launch.
I wondered, do you think that Arthur Smith is really being mindful about being very incremental in the way that he's opening up the offense? Because it felt that way to me, that it was just, okay, if we have success here, we'll open it up a little bit more. And it was just like opening up the window just inch by inch, I guess.
Right. And we talked about the training wheels on the fields a little bit. It felt like Arthur Smith's way of saying, I'm going to build up this quarterback's confidence. Chicago had kind of destroyed Justin Fields' confidence. He was skittish in the pocket. He took bad sacks. He didn't read the field really well. And what Arthur Smith said to Justin Fields was, listen, use your legs when you need to use your legs, but stand in that pocket, make some decisions. He took a few bad sacks in the first 2 games. I think he took 1 or 2 in today's game. I thought the second sack in particular was not a good sack for him to take. I think he held on to it too long. But those moments of negativity that haunted him in Chicago, the turnovers, the bad sacks, just the negativities, the fumbles, they're just not there as plentifully as they are in Pittsburgh. And so it's improved so much in Pittsburgh. He has stripped out a lot of the negativity in his game. He's still kept his deep ball. The legs are still there. Now, he hasn't had those 80-yard runs that dazzled you in Chicago yet, but you know they're in there.
He was clearly intent on trying to stay in the pocket, though, and trying to deliver a pass instead of just press and eject and going on the run today, which I appreciated.
I think it's interesting that Justin Fields has taken such a mindful approach to trying to win from the pocket. I really do, because all the best quarterbacks in the NFL, even if they run, even Lamar Jackson's, he's dynamic. Patrick Mahomes can run. All these guys can run. Josh Allen, they still win from the pocket really well. And I think Allen, it's in terms of his career, Justin Fields has not had many games where he has won this well from the pocket. He's had, gaudier stat lines, flashier stat lines, but a lot of that's been out of structure, created by myself. Today, he won within structure, and he threw with anticipation. That's been a huge issue for Justin Fields over the last 2 years, specifically in Chicago. And today, you said, there's anticipation, and just a forward throw. There's another throw. There's another throw. You're like, he's opening up these windows for these receivers. Justin Fields really stepped up today. And so I really think if you are a Steelers coach, you are a Steelers player, you're a Steelers fan, I think you need to look at this game and say, man, you have to be encouraged by what you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that Justin said at his press conference that stood out to me most was that he spoke about that he's found peace on the field and in the pocket. That to me, that's everything. That's the defining trait of a quarterback's success. If they're feeling skittish, they're in trouble. But if they're able to be calm, cool, collected, like he said he was, hey, Bug, get out of here. Yeah, they came west, man. I thought I left them behind, but I'm really impressed with the overall Steelers performance. I mean, I had eyes on the first 2 weeks, and it didn't wow you. But this week, it's not so much that it was a wow, but you felt like that's a winning recipe on how to have a playoff year, and who knows, maybe win a couple games at that level. So, actually, what was that stat that we peeped?
It was 60 since 1990, 63.9% of teams that go 3-0 make the playoffs. So I mean, that's good for the Steelers. That's the first step. But anyone that you talk to in the organization this year, I've been on this thing, since the offseason, has said the goal isn't to make the playoffs. The goal is to win a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. The drought has been so long. The Steelers are not used to this. This is not an organization that goes without playoff success for this long. And listen, if they play like they did today for 60 minutes in that fourth quarter, I still have concerns, and I'm not fully convinced. I think we're going to find out a lot about this team when they go into the second half of the schedule, when they face teams like the Chiefs, the Eagles, some of their divisional games. We're going to find out a lot about this team in that stretch, because it's a really hard stretch. But I also look at the Steelers and say, man, if they can do similar things to today, if they can have the defense play like this, if Justin Fields can make the big throws in these moments, they can win a playoff game. Now, I've told you today, I'm not sure that they'll go into Arrowhead or go into Buffalo or go to Houston and win. But listen, the first round matchup, the way they're playing right now, I mean, the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens aren't exactly looking sterling early in the year. Again, it's very early, but if the Steelers win the division, they are a top 4 seed, and they're going to host a playoff game. So that's really where you look at it. And I think, this Chargers team, to me looks like a team that might be there in January. And so you might have just gotten a really quality win against a playoff team. And so I think there's a lot of quality here for the Steelers to build on. There's stuff for them to – this is a team that has a lot to work on still. I think that's the positives. And I think their schedule gives them different tests over the next few games, right? Colts are a different test. I think you look at the Cowboys with Dak and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Parsons, they might not be a deep and complete team, but they have superstars over their team. You look, at other teams like the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, and that's your next, premier quarterback test.
Sure.
And I think that's going to be interesting when you get teams like that. But I just think the Steelers have really different tests over the first half of the schedule, so when they get to the second half of their schedule, they can really take on those divisional games and all of that. And I think that they should be happy. Looking back on it, everyone talked about their schedule and how much of a gauntlet it was in that second half. I think they should look back on it and say thank you to the NFL, because it was going to take time with all the new they had on offense to get going, and maybe they're just starting to figure it out. Maybe it's just the natural course of saying, all right, Arthur Smith has found his guys. He's found the personnel, the schemes that work. Justin Fields is now in, and maybe this offense is going to start, to hum. I'm not fully in on the offense yet, but that fourth quarter is as promising as we have seen from them all all season.
Yeah, and the season's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and so I think they're outlining the season in the right way. Is that you don't have to install everything right away. Let there be a trajectory. Let there be growth. So I saw a lot of growth. So Nick, thanks for having me, man. This was fun. This was fun to be out here. Thanks for having me on Steelers Rewind.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming out to Pittsburgh, folks. I will be back tomorrow with Steelers Breakdown. Probably back on the south side as well, talking with players. And then, of course, next week I'll be in Indianapolis. So I'll see you guys there and all week on the south side.